The Business Simplicity Podcast, where leaders share their most successful strategies and the failures that inspired them, so business owners and managers can avoid the suffering and reap the benefits. With your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome back to the Business Simplicity Podcast. We're coming back after the summer. This is Chris Parker, and I'm having a conversation with Mick Walvisch. Before we get into the meat of that conversation, I met Mick about 10 years ago when we were both...
2012 was it?
Yeah.
Summer 2012.
In a weird convergence where I was leaving Lease Plan. I had got through my creative time and produced a feature film, The Right Juice, and was seeking inspiration. And somebody said, go talk to Mick Walvisch at Ebullient Beagle. And I walked into Ebullient Beagle and said, hey, I'm here to talk to Mick. And the people in the front looked at me like I was really, really weird. Because as I remember it, that was basically the day that company and Mick had decided to shut it down and move on to new adventures. And since then, we've been connected on and off and have had some amazing adventures literally around the world, also the Cannes Film Festival and parties and commercial
Berlin.
endeavors.
Don't forget Berlin.
Also Berlin. So it's a delight to have Mick on for a conversation. I'm so curious where this goes. But the first question, Mick, for you is, can you fascinating? Can you explain what is it that you do?
Oh wow! Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I was really looking forward to be at your I call it a table for this moment. What I do? Well, I think that through all those years that I'm an entrepreneur now for more than 29 years, I was counting it last week for a certain reason. I started in the advertising industry. Some people always likes to know a bit about my background, and just to go fast through that CV, because that will also explain what I'm doing. I'm curious. I'm curious about everything. My father is an architect. My mother doesn't live anymore. She was an artist. So I got the genes of two sides. And with my father, I always made models of houses. With my hands, we build it from carton and things like that. So I have the perspective of 3D, and I have the total free mind and the love of my mother. And that love means that I can work with people. I love to work with people from all around the globe, cultures, etc. And in my advertising period, because what is an advertising company, I became locally famous because of asking questions. Because people were coming to me like, hey, we need a campaign, a big brand, and blah. And then I was asking so many questions that people said to me, hey, Mick, that's interesting. Those questions regarding to this subject were never asked. And more or less, that's what I'm doing. So if we were sitting and we got a briefing for a campaign, because I did it for 10 years, so it was a decade in my life that I was in that business. We did commercials, we did packaging, we did formulas for big brands here in Holland. Sometimes I even need to remember it myself that we worked at the big retailers that are still there, things like that. And then it was around 2000, there was something coming up called the internet. Chris is exactly know what I'm talking about. And then I went for a few months, me as a creative guy, to the United States. And I stayed for a few months at Harvard. And I did the business course, me, creative. Can you imagine? It comes in a blue, brown colored world. But there I met people that are still in my treasury box, from Cisco, from IBM, and those guys. And the cool thing was, that's what I learned, advertising, what I learned, that if you put me in a business area, I still do what I can do. That's ask questions. But I can immediately, and that's my creativity, give it back visual in call it a landscape. So people were talking about technology, what you could do with this and with that and with that. And I said, hey, this is interesting. That could be the backward of a ticket for ATM machine. If you go to an ATM machine, in that nowadays, you got money and then you get a small thing, paper, but it's non-value for you. Yeah, there's something on it like, okay, this is what you got, 50 euro. So I said, flip it, put a coupon on it, and go in the same street for a coffee that you promote one of those cafes. It was a stupid idea, but at the end, at Schiphol, we got the e-ticketing business at that moment invented by IBM, Cisco, and Van der Lande, the guy who do all the running for the... And they said, okay, so we can print the reverse side of a ticket with an interesting thing, and you don't call it advertising, Mick? I said, no, it's not advertising, it's image building. And that was the start when I came into the innovation world that people were calling me from that area. Like, yeah, we have an assignment or an RFQ, and we need to write a vision piece. Can you help us just in a session? Because you are always asking those weird questions. It's like a sport game. It's like, we need to really think about the answers. But at the end, it gives so many horizon images. And that's how I more or less came into the innovation part. I sold my agency because I was totally fascinated about technology. I had my father's side, building a house, architect, all those lines and rulers. So I was fascinated about technology. And I repaired everything at my own. So I also knew what was 220 and 12 volt. Sorry. And then I rolled into the world of innovation with those technical companies that need to invent themselves totally. We are not selling, what was it at that moment? UTP cables. No, the question was from Cisco, oh, you deliver routers, but what's your vision? How can you use those routers in certain surrounding? Okay, the word supply chain I knew, but that was it. And then I came into all those business universities and I did my talks and TED Talks. I can visualize quite well, as some people know. I can make an image or a movie myself, so that's very handy. And then people were using my paintings just to evolve or to create the future. So there we want to go. This is where we are. So let's create an innovation curve, cycle, customer experience, white, brown, whatever, paper session. And I loved it. Working with people, all kind of disciplines. And that was also a thing, Chris. I also said, come together, let's make a party. Yeah, but these are only IT guys. They can't work with marketing. I said, let's make a party, come on. And that was also the company where you came that day that I closed, because you remember we had a theater downstairs, totally equipped theater, and above were studios. It was one of my most incredible companies I had. Theater play where we could learn, co-create. We created a safe space for people. They could be open and tell us everything on every aspect of the organization. We blended that with the ideas, and then at the end we had the business cases and concepts, etc. Yeah.
Let me jump in with maybe an asshole question.
Cool.
And it's kind of the so what question. So what I have, I guess, a vision for this and what the potential is, but what impact does all of this make? So for these businesses that you were touching, like why does this matter? How does this land? How what's the oh wow behind these things? Because sometimes marketeers can come in and draw pretty pictures and you're like, yeah, thanks, in the bin. What's the impact you're looking to make, or that you do make?
Well, the interesting thing was at that moment, and still nowadays, there were the agencies like McKinsey and KPMG and Accenture. You remember the period, so there was business consulting. And at the other hand, there was something like advertising, but it was not connected to each other. It was far away. So what we did as Uluru team, and that we did it for quite a time, is that we reinvented, and nowadays you see a lot of examples. I will mention a few. So we injected in business consultancy, we injected the creative part. We all know the business model canvas. That business model canvas, I was there in the beginning with Patrick van der Pijl. Now he's very well known. He was my former partner at Uluru Bigo. I'm very proud of him. He's now on the radio and Billionaire, but he was for 3-4 years, he was partner. And he was in that case like a yin-yang. I wear a yin-yang. So what we created, we had the business consultancy thing with the PwCs, and there was a lack on creativity that was accepted. Because of course, as a CEO, you're not going to your advertising agency to come for a strategy. They went to those companies for a strategy. But it was, in my case, sorry guys, I'm a rebel, a linear thing. But there was the need for co-creation and customer-centric approach. It was very on the map on that moment in retail. But how can you do that if you don't take a 360 perspective? I didn't even know that it was later called 360, but we created 360. We made mood boards with CEOs. Can you imagine a mood board? What are we going to do this afternoon, Mick? Mood boards. So we have magazines, we have collage time. Oh, that's funny. So tie up. And then for those guys, we opened a world, perspectives. And then we downsized it into a report with, of course, a business upside. And so first you have the idea, execution, business model plan, and then started, as I told you, about 2000. It was in the beginning of the startup coming up here in Holland. There was no startup culture. So when Uluru was Middlemere founded in 2004, that was the beginning of Uluru. There were a few funds, there was Endite, Prime Ventures. There were a few funds, that saw overseas what was going on in the United States. And they wanted to do it we were in Amsterdam, of course. And they did it a bit in Amsterdam. And big companies like Vodafone and KPN, they had some money. They wanted to invent they want to do some transition in mobile, those industries, entertainment and mobile. Mobile was, of course, ahead with new services. The Shazams came up, and there were the mobile fair in Barcelona. I was there many times because we worked for one of the biggest companies on that moment who was in mobile and helping them to find applications for applications, shopping applications. Nowadays, you can't even imagine. How can we shop on a phone? Can we make an application for Auchan? This company was working for Auchan. So we came up with the idea of a coupon voucher thing that if you come more, that you get more loyalty. So nowadays, my daughter, if I tell her this structure, it's just a few years ago, but so speedy up are those things are going. So those things we were thinking about, but we didn't do it last sentence, Chris, because they ordered the pizza. So can you please come with the concept? No, I didn't believe in it. We did it together with the management. So we sit down sessions. So what is the impact nowadays? I think that we were ahead, and many people know nothing about ego, that we created a new working style. And this is what we introduced. Because all those firms I just mentioned have now a co-creation department. Co-creation is fully accepted. I'm not saying that it's all working, but the new yin yang we put together in 2004, 2005, it's not copied, Of course it's copied, and it's not because my thoughts explicit. I'm not the founder of the idea in this case, but I'm very happy that I see that people are fruitful, are happy, because this way of working, that they are allowed to do it from a creative perspective instead only from figures and metrics and Excel.
Yeah, and in my experience, I think it's that inclusive co-creative part. And looking at your career, because you also give back. So you like me, you've been a mentor at Rockstart. You've also been at Startup Bootcamp. I love that because not only can you give back with your expertise, but you learn so much. I almost feel guilty being a mentor at Rockstart because, okay, I'm imparting some knowledge, but I learned so much. And then I don't know if you want to call it an exits, but you've taken, and this is my projection on your most recent journey with Ebullient and even TripKey. You've taken, I'll call it this energy, this magic, this Mick, and have brought companies out of the ground. So you pulled them from the roots out, and we won't talk about exits and shareholding, but those companies are operating. How do you feel? I don't know. I guess my question is you've made a bit of a transition from agency, some consultative, actually doing, with your feet in the mud. Just do it. For those that are listening and not watching, he's pointing to the Nike swoosh on his shirt right now. So share a little bit about impact of actually doing it, getting in the mud and creating a company from zero to, call it zero to hero. I don't know, but how?
Well, the first one was quite interesting. I did it through all the years. I'm always waking up with crazy ideas, as they call it, crazy ideas. And for some people, it was like, hey, this is like Gefühl in the Fresse, sagt man in German. Like, hey, this is wow. This is what we want to do. Let give us the idea, and we will incubate it further. So this was Uluru was an incubator. An incubator for ourselves, but also for companies who didn't have the balls to do it. We together we created the balls in a way. But then we started to do it ourselves. And there's always, you need a few things. Of course, you need a great idea. You need the moments, of course, we all know the books about that. But you also need money. You need things needs to be, the universe on the right place, right time, etc. So in the beginning, I created a lot of failures, and not failures with debts and no. But the thing was that in 2010, 11, we created we all know all those food initiatives that delivery at home, like Fresh Guys, etc. We had the first initiative. Even when those initiatives were not there, we started with it, and we invest really a lot of money in it, and more than 2 million euros at that moment. Own money, I can say that, money from my partner, but I was too early, and that's interesting. Sometimes, and then I come back on the question. Uluru was like a treasure box creating. It was like a machine, like a jukebox of ideas. The guys that were working there, I'm so proud of them. They're everywhere in the globe, everywhere they're working. And you know how it is when you put something into a freezer, you can let it be there, and then after years you can take it out, and you can, and then it's good for to eat. Sometimes nowadays, Chris, we did so many things. I have them all here, of course. I stored it well in books, visual books. We created visual books. Instead of reports, we made visual books. We made visual movies, 2.5 minutes short. So not 1,000 words in a report. Nobody wanted to read it, just short. And some of those ideas, when I'm, looking into those Bibles, they're better today. So, the system of a freezer idea, put it in the freezer, 3-4 years later, like a good wine, and then you open it. So we were in many things too enthusiastic, too early for that moment. So the impact was the example, Chris. The impact was, if you have a great idea, go for it. But a lot of those ideas are not, executed. It was just learning material. And then it was I think it was for me 6 years ago, 2016. Then I also met a few guys, you know them, like Bas and those guys. And then we really created like a Lego system, how to stack, to build a company ecosystem. Because a company is nothing. It's just a box. We were talking about box, no soul, nothing in it. So you need to create an ecosystem that's from them who owns it, or from them who have the compassion and the empowerment and the enlightenment to go for it. And that was for me also something new. And that was the beginning of the success. Of course, success is like this, because no company will establish itself in one nice way to the sun. You need some space travel moments. And that's where I'm very proud of nowadays. And the give back thing is that as you know, I worked with so many talented people the recent years, and I had also the opportunity to work inside beautiful companies. But it's very personal to tell you guys, I always started it more or less alone. I had always the idea. I always started with something, and now, yeah, you know what I like? I'm not gonna sit back and relax, Chris. You know me. You see my form. I'm better form than ever. It's time to give back, man. My energy, it's like exploding. But I want to meet up with people that have ideas themselves, and I can collaborate with, and yeah, I don't have to be on stage again. Okay. If it's necessary, let's go together. Let's do a nice performance. Where's the band, man? Come on, let's play. Let's play together in a way.
Let me jump in and you used a bit of a metaphor of having the balls to do it, the cojones, or the energy, or the boldness, if you will, and the with your latest initiatives sort of flying more or less on their own, and being open to work with some other people. Now, my view, knowing you very, very well, is some of these people need to have the balls, meaning don't talk to Mick if you don't have the balls to execute. If you don't have the balls to transform and bring new life into your organization, please don't call Mick. Because that's just not going to work. You have to have a need. You have to have a hunger. My usual question about now is do you have a tip or tactic to help people simplify? But let's rewrite the script a little bit and say, well, do you have a tip or tactic so people can they really be their authentic self and have that cojones, to have that power, have those balls that they can actually make a difference and take a step up? Do you have any tips or tricks for people to really step into their full potential?
Well, first of all, the way you just said it to me, it's more or less the best tip, because all the words are in it. Use your potential, believe in yourself. Nothing is built in a day, like Rome, and we know all those metaphors. If you are doubted, and this is a very important thing, I also learned that, go to someone you can trust and talk with him or her about it. Leadership, or what we know from the way in Japan, people are working, like you have a master for years, and then as a student, you go in yourself. A lot of those things we are doing it, of course. We have systems to learn and to give knowledge to each other. But it's not coming from the heart. It's only coming from the head. So what you just said, Chris, and also the way you said it, it's coming from the heart. And I think we are all created with an amazing thing here. It's our heart. And some people can't feel it anymore, or they lost it, or whatever. But remember, my best tip, you have a heart, and you will meet, because of that heart, because it's full of love, you will meet other people who have the same ambition, or want to listen or to work with you. So don't be doubted about that. I was doubted for a while, because I found myself a bit strange. If you wake up every day with all those creativity and you think, what do people think about me? So I need to learn to accept myself. And that's my second tip. Accept who you are. And if you are working in an organization on a certain level, too high or too low, too high, step back, too low, go up, everything is doable. Everything is reachable. And my fourth tip, I don't know how many tips I give, don't do it alone. There is always someone around you can lean on. And the most important one, criticism doesn't exist. Criticism is as music. They call it nowadays quite subtle feedback. But, if someone is there to share with you something from his heart as a comment on what you're doing, please open your arms and say, come on, give me more. Because then you learn. That's also what I want to do now with my give back time. I made so many failures. I want to share my failures. And then you say, who? You want to share your failures? I'm not going to pay you for your sharing your failures. Be happy that you pay me for my failures, because then you don't have to make that failure. And maybe it gives you more time or less budget.
Yeah, it's priceless.
There are many of those things, Chris.
We spent over an hour before we started recording this, challenging, talking, discovering, and one of the themes that came out of that conversation was that nobody knows. We're in the world of the unknown, and like you said, from the intellectual perspective, people who are trying to lead themselves and others from purely an intellectual perspective, I think you're going to really, really struggle, because the world is so complex and fast moving now. You just can't keep up. So you also need to start, and I love it, you brought that up, that start from that perspective of love. Criticism coming from love is a gift. It's coming from scarcity or lack or fear. Of course, that can be, do with that what you will, but I recommend you just ignore it.
Yeah, sure, Chris.
So
and one of
how do you find that love within yourself and marry that with your intellect?
Oh yeah, there are always things on your path, Chris, that comes on the unexpected moments. As a servant on your path, it's a bit spiritual. I will give you some more insights. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, and for me that's more explicit, coming back a bit on what you just said about this world, we learned a lot, on our education, schools, universities. I think it's the period of unmaterialize yourself. Someone call it unmaterialize yourself. Do it with less is more. I also think the gift is less knowledge gives you more freedom, like kids, or more curiosity. So we were talking in that hour about the world is turning so fast and on so many levels and so many channels. And I compared it in that talk we had before, that I was always moving, and the world was in a certain position. And now I perceive it, personal opinion, that I'm a bit more solid and stable, and the world, so I see the paradox in my life. And some people are saying, okay, are you waiting now till the world is stable again? I said, well, I don't know when it's coming. So, but one of the things we were talking about is how important it is, the knowledge. And then we came in self-love. So self-love is for me, outraging that I got it now. I'm so happy with that. We can talk another podcast how I achieved it, but it's amazing. And the other thing is that I don't, I have another need. I have the need for love, and I don't have the need for more knowledge. I can read 1,000 books. Okay, I can do that. Perfect. Okay. And then I stay in my house, I close my house, and I'm a reader, like a monk, and I have so many respect for monks. But at the other hand, it's maybe a contradiction, and maybe we can discuss it with our, people who are viewing this. Sometimes in knowledge also less is more, because the way our brain is working, our brain is so inventive, sharp in finding solutions. But if we are going back to boxes we learned, and you get the tools out of those boxes that you learned, that's also what I perceive sometimes in workshops. If you ask people in a minute, give the answer is better than if you say, okay, you have 20 minutes to work out this task. Those workshops? Mm-hmm. You have 5 minutes for this question. So yeah.
I seek the paradox that emerges from these conversations, and the one that I just wrote down was we need more love and less knowledge. Or you could say in the workplace. And my invitation for people listening is jump onto LinkedIn, and I'm curious if you agree or disagree with that. That in life, in the workplace, in your personal relationships, your professional relationships, we need more love and less knowledge. God, I love that. I know that's where I am. And my thing is, this perspective of the world. I think maybe when you're younger, we were younger puppies, we were chasing a bit more, and we were running with a pack. I want to stay. I want to stay up. Running, and maybe it's with we're both past 50. Maybe it's that you're like, well, wait a second. Sometimes I can actually be more impactful, more effective just by pausing for a moment and watching how things are moving and seeing some of these deeper patterns and seeing beyond this pack and saying, well, 3 packs over, there's something really interesting going on. Let's create that ecosystem. Let's connect those dots. Let's see if we can share that love in a different way.
Have you ever been, Chris? Just one thing to add on.
Yeah.
I was this weekend. I was into the woods in Germany. Okay, we have all been in the woods, but in that woods there was no light from the city around you. So I saw stars. Okay, I saw stars. Another place, but there was also no Luchthafen. There were no cars. So this silence was so scaring. I was with a group of people that someone take the step to take his breath. And that whole group became in silence. There are always people talking, but the whole group in silence. And this was a revelation for a lot of people afterwards. So less talking, more silence, gives time to thought and to connect. And for me, it was also new. Instead of, let's talk, let's do a round circle, let's talk, stand-ups, and take time out just for a moment.
Well, I think to
listen
connect
to
that,
your inner voice.
And I wasn't going to share too much about this, but the last episode with Joytish around energy leadership, I shared that I went to a week-long advanced retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza over the summer in London, and I still haven't decided if I'm going to share really much about this on this podcast because I've not made the connections to business simplicity, but to have to participate in a room with 2,500 people multiple times just for an hour, effectively in silence, wishing other people well, wishing other people love, wishing other people wholeness, which is intentionally giving all of your attention, all of your energy, all of your gifts to others without expecting anything in return. And I can imagine there's a similar sort of mystic or spiritual experience in the silence of, coming from the States and growing up in forests, spending quite a few times in northern Utah. That connection of just being there and being present and being still, and perhaps even combining it with just wishing those around you, your blessing, your love. Yeah. We need more love, less knowledge. I would really inspire people that if they're tickled by this, and if, quite frankly, if you've got the balls, and we use that as very proverbial. So ladies, if you have the cojones, you have the power, you've got the inspiration to shake stuff up, get a hold of Mick. He's on LinkedIn. We'll put the link in the show notes. And Mick, thank you so much for joining, for sharing, sharing with me over the last, over our decade of co-creating all these magical experiences. Mick Walvisch, thanks so much. And everybody, again, if you are inspired by this and you want to challenge or support the statements that we need more love and less knowledge, then kick it around. Leave a comment in LinkedIn. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening. Download the Simplicity Toolkit from ebullient.com to discover the power of the Simplicity Scan and Sprint. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player.